Okay.
Yeah, now it's recorded. Well, thank you very much for participating in our teleconversation. I call teleconversation informal, relax, no targets, just to get to know each other and also to share our thought, our preoccupation, and maybe to get more understanding better on the situation on the hotspots of geopolitical conflicts in the world. Now, why I organize this, I will speak about 2 points first. So the rundown, I will just give a short introduction, and after that, I will invite Margarita to speak about her country, a kind of testimony, what happened in Belarus today, and your reflection on it. After that, Elena, who was also from Belarus but based in Moscow, and who did research recently, organizing conference in Minsk, I think. She will react on the first speech from Margarita, and then I will ask Polina, my colleague, also from Russia, based in Paris in France, and she's teaching in Le Havre University. So it's my colleague and university, Polina, and we spoke. We discussed often at the university about Belarus. That's why I will ask her to speak after Elena. And then Gracjan from Warsaw, because he has also research on this case. After that, we will have Bruno, who also gave a preface, a foreword of a book on Belarus. So I think he is also aware about the situation or concern about the situation in Belarus. And then finally, we will have also Dimitris Konstantakopoulos from Athens. And he is also very alert of this geopolitical situation in neighboring countries of Greece. Boutros is coming. No, but Boutros sent me a message. Boutros is from Lebanon, but he sometimes get trouble with the technological advance of Zoom. So that's all the speakers. After that, we will open discussion. Everybody can raise hand to ask question and to have the response to answer from the speakers. Okay, that's fine for you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Well, I have programmed this meeting for 2 hours, but I don't have limit for Zoom. So even if it's more than 3 hours, there will be no problem, I hope. I am lucky among the lucky men who have Zoom without limit, because most of the people, they have a Zoom account with 40 minutes limit. But I don't know why Zoom is put me in the list of people who have
no limit.
account without limits for free. So I don't know why. That's a question. So, well, first, we are preparing 2 conferences. First, commemoration of 60 years of non-aligned conference of Belgrade. We will organize in February in France, 60 years after Belgrade. What non-alignment in multipolar world and for a global future. That is the theme of our conference in February. And we don't know yet if we can organize physically, but we will try to keep the agenda. So maybe we will organize online like this. And the second conference is on the commemoration of 66 years of Bandung, 50 years of Belgrade, and 55 years of Havana conference. This is the 3 conferences related to Bandung. So this is magic number, 66, 60, and 55. This is the unique number in the world. So we will organize this conference in Indonesia in October 2021, in October, the end of October 2021. And we hope that the coronavirus will be, well, not yet eradicated, but maybe already, well, we can arrange things, because the vaccine supposed to be already, how do you say, spread or injected to the people. Well, Beatrice is coming from Rio de Janeiro. So this is the first. That's why I propose to organize regularly teleconversation on global geopolitical hotspots. Yeah, Beatrice, yes. That's why this is the objective. I organize regularly the global geopolitical hotspot in the world in order to, as a working group, we are a working group for these 2 conferences, in order to have common understanding of these issues, and to have also a common stand in order to make a final declaration on these different geopolitical problems. This is the first point. The second, yes, this is the objective of our meeting, to get an insight of every hotspots, involving speakers from inside the country. That's why I am happy to welcome Margarita, who lives in Minsk, to give testimony of what happened in her country. And the second, to have common understanding and perception. And the third, to take a common stand on these different issues. The third, what I found interesting is that Belarus is a part of non-aligned movement. It is a member of non-aligned movement since 1998. So it's strange, long time after the fall of Soviet Union, because Soviet Union was ended in 1991. But 7 years later, Belarus joined non-aligned movement until now. So, and the second point also, Azerbaijan, who is now in conflict, more or less recently settled, thanks to Russia. And Azerbaijan is also member of non-aligned movement. And the last summit of non-aligned movement last year was held in Baku in Azerbaijan. So it is also interesting case, Belarus, Azerbaijan, Caucasia. So this very hot issues, I think. What I learned as a non-specialist on Belarus or Russian or Slavic studies, what we saw in Western media, because I live in France, and although I follow the alternatives media like Russia Today or CGTN from China, but still we do not catch what really happened and what will be the perspective of Belarus. What we know from the media is that the protest, the demonstration continue and demanding the demission or resignation of Lukashenko. And what we don't see is the reaction of the people, the majority of people of Belarus. So what we saw is the minority demonstrators who ask the resignation of Lukashenko. But what really happened in the country? What is the reaction of the people, the majority of the people, etc.? We do not see. So that's we would like to know. Maybe Elena, you can speak about it, and also after that, advancing your finding of your research. So Elena, VEDUTA, the Elena from Moscow, because we have the Elena from Le Havre. Now Elena from Moscow.
Yes, thank you very much that we organized a very important conference, because Belarus, it is my opinion, now is a center of the struggle between two strategies of globalization. How can I explain this? At first, Belarus had special place in USSR. It was one of the most technically developed country, with very high cultural and very clever, with very good qualification people. For example, we had the best computers in that period. Mathematics and physics, some of them had Nobel premiums. And schools, physics, mathematics of Belarusians were maybe the best in the Soviet Union, and international Olympiads. Our students could have first place. So yes, it is a very intellectual country. The second characteristics of Belarus is that people who live in this country are very kind and very naive. They maybe the most kind people whom we can meet in the world. Why maybe they were such, could organize such partisans movement, and they never can be losers, because they have their very strong principles. Very interesting people. And what this special place of Belarus, a scientific technical country, of course, received very strong knock when Perestroika began. Because the West, thank you very much, helped us to destroy the economy of the Soviet Union, and with help of our nomenclatura, party nomenclatura, which had such dream to be the same very rich as our global oligarchs. So they began to destroy planning system, and as a result, we received market economy, total chaos with corruption, without any perspective how to go away from this global crisis. But Belarus, Lukashenko, who was elected, I want to say that my father, he helped him in elections, because he gave his materials about planning of economy. And Lukashenko had beautiful speech in elections, first elections, when he said, it doesn't matter what is the ONT. If ONT, private ONT is work and effective for people, okay. If it's not effective, sorry, we will take this ONT. So Lukashenko, with his instincts inside, he is, I want to say, very socialistic oriented person. But what happened? Of course, nobody needed his factories, which produced and produce now very famous automobiles, tractors, and they continue to keep high technologies, but it is very difficult to them, because they have no resources, and all resources such as oil goes from Russia. And always we have such discussions, is this price for Belarus high or not high? And our oligarchs, of course, they have such aim to privatize very big enterprises of Belarus, which Lukashenko continues to keep as he can, because you can imagine small country is surrounded by not friends, and he is always needs to be between West and East. And he doesn't want to be with West because he knows that German capital has such aim to privatize big enterprises of Belarus. Everybody wants to keep the owners of this country for themselves from East and from the West. Why Lukashenko continues to struggle to be something. Sorry.
So this is Boutros is coming. Okay, thank you. See Boutros. Okay, continue. Continue, Elena. Yes.
But what happened with Lukashenko during this big period from his first elections? I forgot, maybe it was 1991. I can do mistake. Before this period when we live now, he tried to government by economy using old methods of planning. But old methods of planning has a lot of mistakes which destroyed planning system. For example, planning, it is a process which we had done in Soviet Union. Planning we can do only by special successive approximation methods. What does it mean? If I will ask somebody in our country, our experts, what does it mean? They will not answer because they think that planning means some predicts, econometric predicts. Econometric predicts, they are predicts, but calculation of plan, it is a very serious problem. And this problem was decided at first in 1927 year by Gracjan, our first chairman of Gosplan, and Strumilin, Kuybyshev, a very famous academic Strumilin. They were first scientists of the world who understood that when we are planning, we need to use back connection from enterprises to our Gosplan. It means that it can't be, as for example, now in France, planning. Only we trying to construct something as we think at the top, but they have no any imaginations what is doing bottom, what are doing and what can do enterprises. So it was genuine idea how to calculate plan by this successive approximation method, what we want for consumer needs and what we can produce from the bottom, from enterprises. And it should be by this method to go to balance. It is what such understanding of planning, it is the most important today, because thanks to this method, our country could reach these best results during Second World War, with a course of industrialization, Second World War. Then we became the country of bipolar world. But problems of calculating such plans, of course, they request to introduce new electronic computers. For their introduction, we needed to describe this process of planning by mathematical methods, then to create program. And in this case, we could create such artificial intelligence to government not by people, to government by economy for interest of people. It is very important because if we compare when cybernetics appeared, it was 1949, the book of Norbert Wiener, American sorts of think tanks, they began to think how to government by people using digital technologies. But in our country, with something later, we concentrated all our attention how to government is using these possibilities of computers to government by economy, because this successive approximation method of planning needed automatization, needed to create this cybernetic model of planning for using, effective using of new technologies. A lot of reasons. I don't want to explain now. Maybe we will have special discussion, because my opinion, when I very interested in my opinion. Thank you very much that I read from Greece. Now I can see this guy. What Greece? I can't see him. Ah, yes, Dimitris.
Yes, Dimitris. Yes, Dimitris. Yes.
When I read his articles, and I give to read these articles to my students, here is Grigor, my son, which will explain that to Bruno what problems of planning in France. Yes, Grigor, you can see him in Russia. Yes, he is that. I want to say that what in that period was real intellectual war between economics scientists of Soviet Union and West ideas how to govern by people using these technologies. And thanks to our nomenclatura, we blocked all attempts of our scientists to go ahead to create such automatic system of government by economy for people. And they began to do reforms. They like reforms because reforms, it is something like a chaos, to introduce chaos in system of government. And they began to destroy system of planning. Moreover, our scientific institutes, they began to create econometric models for planning, which had no any relation to these successive approximation methods which use Gasplan. And Gasplan, all negative, a lot of mistakes, but he kept the country and we had 2-3% of our growth before our planning was destroyed. And he had no any help from scientists. Only one institute it was created in Minsk. Again, it is very interesting. In Minsk, Belarusian Institute created a real automatic system who could help to join very big enterprises such as Minsk tractor factory, Moscow factory of produce how to say watches, watches and other in Ministry of Defense. They created a real automatic system of government by economy, not documents, not how to buy, to sell, Internet of Things or FinTech. No, it was a real automatic system how to govern by economy, how to organize industry for to develop this economic system in the needed direction. And yes, so happens that my father, who was first director of this institute in Minsk, he created cybernetic model, how model of interbranch model by method, successive approximation method. It is a system of algorithms which very useful for digital platform. And this approach can help us to use this platform and to move using this car machine in our what we want direction to for welfare for people. And at the same moment, we can do the choice of the most effective technologies to do this race more quickly and to go in proper direction. Nobody, you can find never any country which had such experiments in Soviet Union, which became bipolar country and bipolar well, because thanks to these methods of successive approximation method of planning. And without this method, without this model, we will never organize a new economic model using technologies for the better life of people, never. So why I said such speech? Because if we have no automatic system, we continue to do our decisions by manual government. Our President Putin, President Trump, or new President Biden, it doesn't matter for me who is, because I'm interested in all the mechanism. Absolutely, only mechanism. Lukashenko, our former Gasplan, they worked by manual government. This work should be automatized, but everybody is working by manual government. How you imagine can we go from global crisis if so much connections between different enterprises? How to organize such special industrial chains that we could go in proper direction? It is impossible. What we can see after this, we can see that this centralized using monetary instrument system, of course, can't go from the global crisis. Global crisis will continue. And of course, people do not like those who is sitting at the top of such system. Why they shout, Lukashenko, go away. Putin and Khabarovsk, go away. We can see the situation in USA. Go away Trump and go away Biden. It doesn't matter. Because they can't government by economy. They government by people. They're doing different reforms. But these reforms without planning are not only useless, they are very terrible because they will only destroy people, life of poor people, and to do more riches, life of the most richest people. This the gap between poor and rich only will be more and more and more. So Lukashenko, thanks to his, he wanted to contain Belarus as something socialist country. I want to say his education is almost free, very good quality. He continues to contain Soviet education. He tried to contain free health, free system of medicine system. He gives people flats free. He can do houses free for people who are working in agriculture. So he is socialistic oriented. But his system of our old planning, which we had before, thanks to his manual government, means crisis. He needs to go to automatic system of government in direction for people. It is the most important now for him because we can see people were tired from him. He is 26 years in the power. And what a very interesting figure, because from one side, he has socialist, only one from all our former Soviet republic, he continues to keep himself more close to socialist orientation. But he can't, he is under pressure from West and East. His economy goes down and his manual government, he can't do something with this crisis. And of course, young people, now I want to go to young people who supports this stupid, not useless, very terrible reforms which support more than 60 scientists of Belarus, of different countries, supports reforms, how to destroy more life of people, how to privatize all these enterprises, how to take to themselves this state-owned, which he continues to keep. And of course, young people, they have very interesting teachers. Teachers in universities, they are speaking that reforms are good, market economy, stupid idea. What market economy in 21st century? I don't want to laugh. We know that oligarchs are ruling, global oligarchs. No market economy in pure, such pure appearance as it was in the beginning of 19th century. How you can use in this period, when it is, we live in 21st century, to use mechanism from 16th century mercantilism and mechanism of the beginning of 19th century. How we can produce the plane, very complicated plane, with this shouting market economy, market economy. What is this market economy? Chaos and destroy of economy. So we destroyed our plane, our planes industrial, we destroyed our cosmos machines because they need to calculate these industrial chains. now market, who will go to the market with special equipment to produce the plane? Of course, no. We need in this 21st century to calculate industrial chains to produce this complicated technique. And these reforms with what alternative now we can see, they go with the same reforms, how to destroy economy of Belarus, how to use everything what they have to take for more rich people, and Belarus absolutely will repeat this experiment with Ukraine. Now Ukraine is chaos, people are absolutely poor. It was very famous republic as Belarus. They were something in competition, the most strongest republics of the former Soviet Union. Now Ukraine, we can say no Ukraine. Ukraine can be again famous, strong Ukraine only when Russia will give her help, only. And of course, Russia now, as we know, lives under market economy, and it is very difficult, Russia, to help to Ukraine. But we can see why I said that Belarus now is this across different ways, because West, the West only can give her these stupid reforms, absolutely declarations without any mechanism which will say, yes, these declarations will be implemented. No, only la-la, la-la, they like to speak. And there are Belarusian students, especially from Belarusian State University, because they are such free, their teachers are so like market economy. They use this stupid monetary theories, they give them to their heads. And of course, young people, they tired from this Lukashenko. I can understand this. I can understand them. And they want some changes. Yes, it can be very bad, but we want changes. We are tired to live in the same economy. And here, his behavior, I don't know, is it true or not that he punished a lot of people who are against? But I want to say, if to be honest, if you want to destroy a country, you do not give any construction how to change this country to the better life. Why should you shout and request the power from me? I'm trying to keep the country how I can. And suddenly, Alexeyevich, our Nobel laureate writer, now she became the most important ideologue of this movement. And she wants not Europe, she wants fascism in Belarus. She wants fascism. So she is against Lukashenko. Of course, as a writer, she has no any constructive ideas, but she is playing on I hate Russia. And I think maybe you love Europe. No, she wants to have real fascism in Russia, where these people under white, red, white flags, flags from Nazism, they will support fascism. You see, no knowledge how to create new model, how to develop economy of Belarus. They are trying to destroy everything what keeps Lukashenko. And I suppose a lot of not good people help to Lukashenko to do a lot of mistakes. For example, elections showed 90% for Lukashenko. It seems to me somebody too tried. I do not believe to this digitals, but it was interesting. I found to my one girl, she is working in technical institute, the teacher. The most interesting, technical institute students, they had no any interest to these strikes. Only humanitarian students organized this. And she said, I believe that he had 90% because these people who are working, who are busy in agriculture, they will never go to these strikes. But people who doesn't want to study, don't want to work, they are happy to organize something nasty. And moreover, Lukashenko, of course, had done big mistakes that he became to develop IT technologies in the sense without any use to do more effective economy of Belarus. They can do new games which are popular for the world. They can do some, for example, system how to arrange documents. They are doing what they want, but has no any effective activities for how to do more higher Belarusian economy. So he paid a lot of money. He had done these IT technologies, the people who now lives in different countries. And of course, these people who are eating the product which produce our very big enterprises and agriculture for themselves without any their useful activities. And they began to destroy Belarus. Some side nectar from Poland, two stupid, idiots. They are playing with people who should go to this barricade, who should go to demonstration, and so on. But situation is very serious now, because if we will lose Belarus, I suppose the global alternative will disappear. Absolutely. And what I am happy that Putin, our president, you should not think that I am excited by our president in all his deals. No, but in this case, he showed that I will not give Belarus to destroy, because we are in the same union. Belarus and Russia are connected in the same union, and we have right to help president if it will be something bad for him. So Russia, moreover, I want to say that very strong command from Moscow came to Minsk, and this command helped to Venezuela to keep their president. If you know, do you remember they wanted to change president of Venezuela? Very strong command from Moscow helped to president of Venezuela. The same command helped to Lukashenko to keep his place. But of course, as if Lukashenko will continue this manual government, he can't change situation. She will be more and more worse, and people will say, whom we should blame? Lukashenko, he is sitting at the top. And he is doing this decision without any back connections with people. So it is something as I am Tsar, everybody who is in more lower position, I am Tsar because nobody can check me. System should be changed. And I hope, you can't imagine how I hope that Belarus now has very good possibility to change their model to be first of the countries of the world, thanks to Lukashenko, to his very strong character, to change vector of development, to automatize planning system. Moreover, dynamic model, cybernetic model of interbranch balance was born in Minsk. It is their model. If we will introduce this model, and we will do this, flows of information from enterprises, from about every product, will go to the system where we can do harmony to coordinate this information about all producers, about all goods, and then we can create such special industrial chains, and we can to divide our industrial investments to realize the trajectory, how to move from this place where we are now to the better life of people. I hope in this very much. Now, I suppose they consider different ideas, different approaches, but such approach as reforms, democratic reforms, but it is fascist reforms, how to destroy people's life, they will not be accepted by Lukashenko. And maybe, I hope so, Belarus will be first country which will realize new model for alternative, how to do life people better. I can't see any other possibilities. And in this sense, I hope we will help to Lukashenko. I'm not excited maybe by some his behavior, but he is a very strong leader who will not give his power to anybody if he understands, and he understands very well, that these color revolutions, it is instrument how to destroy the country for the better life of global oligarchs. So it is my opinion. If you will have then questions, I will be happy to answer.
Thank you, Elena. So, well, for those who came later, Elena VEDUTA is professor of economics in Lomonosov State University in Moscow. So there are many things, many interesting, exciting points in her speech. Of course, I will not summarize, but some points, for example, you always come back to cybernetic planning, which is, it seems, it's your specialty as economist, cybernetic as planning, and you speak. Well, I think interesting that you said that Belarus is under the pressure from East and West.
Yes.
From West, yes, we know, under pressure from West. But from East, what does it mean, pressure from East? Now, we will discuss later. We will discuss later, not now. But just some question related to what you have said. Okay. So that's well, many things, but I will not continue to pinpoint your speech. Now I will ask Polina. Are you ready to speak? Yes. Polina is my colleague of Le Havre University, and she's Russian and based in France. Okay, Polina, can you? Well, 5 minutes. It's okay for you, Polina?
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. And first of all, I would like to thank Darwis for this invitation to participate in this discussion. And I will try to express the Russian point of view, the position of Russia in this conflict. For Russian Federation, the links between Russia and Belarus are more important than any political intrigue. They are really strategically more important than any personal relations between politicians. It's not Putin, it's Lukashenko, it's a very global problem. That's why when the multi-vector foreign policy of President Lukashenko worried Russian Federation. For Russia, this policy, this multi-vector policy, can have a very negative consequences. First of all, the union state, you know, there is a union state between Russian Federation and Belarus, could end, and NATO bases could be installed on the territory of Belarus. The economic links could be destroyed between Russia and Belarus. According to Russia, this is a color revolution in Belarus, which purpose is to destroy the links between the two countries. Even if there are people who are not satisfied with the Lukashenko ruling, and of course there are such people, globally the situation is manipulated from outside. President Putin spoke about this during the opening session of the last Shanghai Organization meeting. He stressed external interference in the internal affairs of all the countries members of the Shanghai Organization. And he said that such interference is unacceptable for Russia. This was also pointed by our foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov. Russia is convinced that Belarus can find the solution. The Belarusian people, by their own, will find the best solution from this difficult situation without external assistance. It is unacceptable that Europe and USA act as judges. It is unacceptable for Russia that Europe and United States impose sanctions. And it is a long-standing policy of European countries. And today, Poland, United States, and Lithuania actively insist on it. President Putin from the beginning asked European countries and United States not to interfere in the affairs of Belarus. It is obvious that this policy is pointed against Russia. Presently, you can see that the number of participants in the protest is decreasing. There, yes. And Russia hopes that the situation will cool down. If not, Russia will participate. We form one union state. We can define the integrity of Belarus. At the same time, even if the participants' number is reduced, we observe more aggressivity. This is a real provocation, which purpose is to block the constitutional reforms. President Lukashenko promised to start discussions. Don't forget that Prime Minister of Russian Federation went to see Lukashenko at Minsk. The president of Belarus was invited in Moscow. That's why the President Lukashenko promised to start the discussions. There is a planning, there is a deadline, and Russia backed this project. Russia considers that Belarus needs the biggest public participation in the discussion. And according to Russia, if present opposition represented by Svetlana Tikhanovskaya comes to power, Belarus will stop being independent state. Western countries understand perfectly what they are doing. The European Union, Canada, and United States imposed personal sanctions against Lukashenko, and money flows from Poland and Lithuania to organize the protests. They give the instructions how to prepare explosives during this protest, for this protest. The present opposition is not able to negotiate. And this worries, perturbates Russia. This is a big problem. For Russia, there is no real opposition in Belarus. I agree with my colleague, it's not the opposition, a constructive opposition. According to experts, if Lukashenko wants to remain in power, it may be necessary to go back to the union state. A new plan is being discussed. The previous agreements have completely lost their relevance, and they are no more feasible in the form in which they were conceived. 20 years ago, the union state of Belarus this project was blocked by Moscow. It was blocked by Eltsin because of the power. Lukashenko was very ambitious leader. It was a big project of union state, very important 20 years ago. But Eltsin blocked completely this future. And now the only option is to restart it under new forms, with new people maybe. If the President Lukashenko accepts to organize new elections, maybe we will have another people to negotiate, to continue to work together. And this is important for Russia to organize the new politicians, to create the new political forces in Belarus. It's the future of it's our future. And Union State is one of the projects of Russia, very important now. But Russian Federation has other projects. For Russia, the Eurasian project is also important. It doesn't progress enough politically, maybe economically, but not politically, because of the national elite who don't want to share power. It's normal. The Collective Security Treaty Organization project has its own limits also. This is a project, military project of defense of this common territory of several states. And for Russia, this treaty allows to keep its influence upon its members. But nevertheless, these countries in reality will never support Russia in military actions. We should not have illusions. Russia globally doesn't benefit of other countries' support, even if color revolutions are imported from outside. There are always obvious inside reasons. For instance, in Belarus, there are anti-Russian feelings. The younger generation consider Russia like a neighbor country, nothing more. There's no emotion like for the old generation. Unfortunately, we observe the anti-Russian position in Armenia. The Russian television is forbidden there. Russia should define its policy more precisely. The policy on the post-Soviet states, in the post-Soviet states, how to act, how to keep its influence. Today, experts consider that Russia has to protect more firmly its national interests. Today is very important to develop the national economy rapidly. Russia should become attractive to the other countries historically associated with it, because the anti-Russian trend can be felt everywhere. And the situation is really difficult and complicated. This is the new reality. And Russia has to build up a very clear policy among the post-Soviet states. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Polina. Thank you very much. So, there are also some interesting point, but since the beginning, you said that the West wants to destroy the relation between Belarus and Russia.
Yes, exactly.
So,
this is the position, the official position. It's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Not only official position. Yes, it's my personal.
So we see here the affiliation between Elena and Polina. We will see what will say a Polish Gracjan from Poland. What will he say? He is from Academy of Naval Institute of Naval Institute of Poland. Gracjan, what is your insight of this situation?
Yes, thank you very much, Darwis. Good afternoon. I am very glad to be here in this specific new civilizational condition. I am from Polish Naval Academy, from Institute of International Relations in Gdynia, at the coast of the Baltic state, at the north of Poland. And the previous analysis was very important, much of content. So I have, because of time, I want to add comments in the two sphere, especially. The first one is about generalization. I think that nowadays we observe the geopolitical mega trend, which is the fact that era of Western domination and US hegemony has been sweeping. And the main changes are called the counter-hegemonic alliance between China and Russia that is cemented of the idea of the Great Eurasian Partnership. And since 2015, it has been filled with the targeted synthesis of Eurasian Union and Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, popularly named as the New Silk Road. And of course, other organizations which support this building of multipolar world order as Shanghai Cooperation Organization and BRICS also work for these changes. And from this point of view, the Belarusian crisis is a very important moment and next element in ongoing struggle between those two contradictional processes, defending of hegemony and counter-hegemonic processes. Many was already mentioned about the internal situation, but from the geopolitical standpoint, I also want to highlight that from the process of building and defending now Western domination, a very important moment and dangerous is the building of Union State with the Russian Federation, and the Belarus was a final step to closing of the Western sanitary cordon around Russia. Yes, and another geopolitical moment is that Minsk's commitment to China's New Silk Road and very good relations with Beijing. Yes, it is also very important in nowadays struggles. And one, it is worth to add another important moment in last months. Considering the current situation, we should also take into account the attitude of Belarus in the fight against COVID-19. Belarus has not imposed a health regime on the population, and the situation is better than in many Western countries, as we compare, for instance, with United States. Yes, it is meaningful that no one was punished for protests without masks. Yes, and a very important moment in the narration struggle in today's processes is that President said that he was being bribed by money from International Monetary Fund. Yes, about $950 millions for the lockdown. Of course, International Monetary Fund contradicts this version, but its activities, earlier activities, of course, give us indication that it's an instrument of neoliberal globalization. Therefore, Lukashenko exposed himself to the interest of global pharmaceutical corporation, and asking about the behavior of other leaders by succumbing of pressure for World Trade Organization led often to the multidimensional crisis in their countries. So it was also very important manifestation of far-reaching resistance to globalism, which Elena clearly described as a oligarchy ideology for nowadays. And let's jump into the second aspect, which I want to highlight you especially. It is, of course, related. It is related with activities of Poland. To start analyzing the Poland's behavior, we should mention that when the Belarusian crisis started, the important novelty was the ambiguous attitude of the United States. There are many indications that the forces of so-called deep state, visible manifestations of which are non-governmental organizations and the George Soros Fund behind them, and the Democratic Party was supporting cold revolution, but not the option of current president. Trump did in fact call the protesters in Belarus terrorists at first. Of course, this ambiguity may also mean an attempt to play a game of good and bad policeman with Moscow. And the good policeman in this narration was the US president, which generally offers Russia a move to the United States side against China for the status quo in Belarus. Later, we could heard from ambassador of Russia in the United States that Russia didn't agree and wouldn't in the future agree in this kind of changing their geopolitical vector. But this strategy of the United States at the first promote the situation in which the regional clients of the United States Poland, Lithuania, Ukraine, and the Baltic states have been appointed to the role of taking control over Belarus and support the opposition. And visible sign of this was that joint statement against the election result by Warsaw, Vilnius, and Lithuania and Estonia to the authorities of Belarus, of course, in the name of so-called democracy, which is, of course, at the flag of Western powers and their allies from 30 years. What is the Polish geopolitical code? Since 90s, since the end of post Potsdam's Yalta's world order and of course collapse of Soviet Union, the Polish geopolitical code was based on attracting post-Soviet states west. Poland was the first country to recognize independence of Ukraine and strongly support the change the vector of Ukrainian geopolitics from west to the east. In 1997, well-known doctriner and geopolitics Zbigniew Brzezinski, in his book Great Chessboard, openly pushed Poland to play this role in Eastern Europe, and Poland still play this role, which, for instance, in the past was to support of so-called Eastern Partnership. And back to the Belarusian crisis. Of course, it is worth you to know that the possibility that also a very great role in this crisis played Great Britain, which had signed the Defense Pact at the end of 2017, and may play also important role in the organization of the protest. It is not coincidence that the Bielsat television is financed jointly by the Polish and British budgets. And of course, important role in mobilizing the protesters is played by the Bielsat Nexta, which not only publish instructions for the protesters, but also conducts disinformation campaign. And Poland geopolitical code is based on the so-called Promethean concept, which are reinterpretation of vision of Piłsudski from between two world wars period. And shortly speaking, this geopolitical project then and also now have the main aim to ripping Russia at the seams of independence, to help to build so-called independence state from post-Soviet area, but the real independence means that they must be anti-Russian state, and it was very clear when we observed the support of Polish government to the Ukrainian crisis. Nowadays, they also Poland created so-called Lublin IV, which is the concept which should gather Poland, Lithuania, Ukraine, Belarus, was integrated. Facade is the common historical past in the First Republic of Poland. Of course, history is a very vivid element of shaping ad hoc ideology. But in reality, this activity of Poland at present means that is apart from the status of state that illegally interferes in affairs of another, doing the will of the Anglo-Saxon powers. And it is similarly to the seizure of Zaloża in 1939, which was a part of Hitler's expansion at the expense of the Czech Republic. And we observe in Poland so-called Euro-Atlantic front among the current elite, because the peoples and politicians from different parties, from the left and the right, support the overthrow of the incumbent president of the neighboring country, which is an obvious interference in the affairs of the other state. And the narration is very anti-Russian, and of course contradict with the internal policy that Poland want to be independent and don't want any foreign actors to intervene in our internal relations, not only Russia but European Union also. But in reality of today's world, this Polish activity is all the more deceptive as nowadays Poland becoming the avant-garde of the defense of our Atlantis, but is in the fact transmission belt for the expansion of private transnational corporations, because Poland haven't got in reality their own strong corporations and are in fact the semi-periphery of Western powers which control the Polish economy. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you, Gracjan. Thank you very much. So there are other perspective, very interesting from, especially from Polish perspective. But you said that in fact the crisis in Belarus is a part or is representing also the conflict of hegemony and counter hegemony in the global geopolitics. And what is interesting also, you speak about the independent countries, post-Sovietic independent states, etc. And the West support the independence of former Soviet republics or Soviet states as far as they are anti-Russia. That's what you stated. This is interesting. And so Poland was also independent and supposed to be anti-Russia, I suppose. And also Poland is always has a basis of NATO in Poland. Well, there are many questions that we can discuss later. Now I will ask Bruno to speak. I will show you. Do you see this book? This a book, very thick, 370 pages, on the last republic of Soviet Republic, which is Belarus, which is in the past was social oasis of economy and politic and economy of Europe. And Bruno gave a forward to this book with the picture of Lukashenko. You see this. So Bruno, maybe you can present some words on this issue. 5 minutes, okay?
Okay. So I just wanted to remember some basic things I think they're interesting. On the historical point of view, because it's important, Belarus is not a Western country historically, but it's not also a typical Russian country in this sense that it is a Russian-speaking country, but its modernity is completely linked with Soviet Union. So Belarus is in its identity much more Soviet than Russia, and not so linked with traditional Russia and traditional Russian culture. And it's important. Elena told that the Belarusians are naive and kind, which is really, it's important to tell that, because Belarusians, they had no elite up to the beginning of 19th century. The elites were either Polish, either Russian, but basically Belarusians were peasants. So Belarus it's still a post-rural country. Of course, during Soviet time, they had a huge social advancement of a new elite, the technical elite, and it was a center of the Soviet economy, but it's all due to the Soviet times. And it's uncomparable with other Soviet republics on other Soviet or other socialist states. That's the first thing. So in this situation, if you understand this is a new country with all the history, but a new country, socially speaking, economically speaking, it has of course a difficulty to find its way, and especially it's a little country. Now I will, and it's a little country, but it's a very important geopolitical country and geo-economical point of view. And we have also to take into account, because tensions in Belarus are very important for big powers, because it's one of the strategical places in Europe, in Eastern Europe, of course. Now I wanted to give you some information I have concerning because we ask all the time, what is the representativity of opposition in Belarus? How many Belarusians are behind opposition or not? And I will give you some numbers I have, some statistic I have, of course, contradictory, but I think it's important to know. Of course, officially, Lukashenko did win the election by about 80%, and the opposition had 20%. The opposition tells the exact contrary. They say the opposition had 80% and Lukashenko had only 20%. But some opposition institutes accept the fact that about 2/3 of Belarusians did vote for Lukashenko. Of course, you will not find that in mainstream media, but you can find it in some institute linked with the opposition. And I have contact also with a sociological institute in Minsk, which is ECOOM. And of course, they don't tell it officially, because officially Lukashenko did have 80% of the vote, but they say privately that Lukashenko has about 2/3 of people and 1/3 is for opposition, but it's not exactly the situation in Minsk. The city of Minsk, the capital, is about half-half. So it means Minsk is 2 million people, so it means that the opposition in Minsk has about 1 million people behind it, it's quite important. But also we have to think that maybe the other million is for Lukashenko, which is not, which we have to take into account. Anyway, it's obvious that the opposition is much easier for the opposition to mobilize, because they have a very good, Gracjan told about it, very good internet connection, internet organization, and so on. And Lukashenko did one big error. He never wanted to have its own party. There are some little parties in Belarus which are for him, but he didn't want to have a presidential party. He didn't want to have a structure that can be compared to the CPSU during the Soviet times. And now it came against him, because he couldn't have grassroots organization mobilizing his followers. Even if that, we had strong manifestation for Lukashenko, but mostly in provincial towns, in provincial districts. In Gomel, for example, we had several tens of thousands manifestations for him. In Minsk, we had a much lower manifestation for him than against him, but still we had. And now we have to ask who is behind opposition and who is for Lukashenko. First of all, we have to know that in Belarus, we have very good efficiency state enterprises. Some enterprises are really, really top. and they are selling their goods all over Soviet Union, but even to Pakistan, to China, to Iran, to Africa, and even in Western countries. So we have this state enterprise, but we have also a good efficiency, high-tech, private, I would say Silicon Valley style and ideology. The Belarusian Silicon Valley is the base of the opposition movement. And Lukashenko let them develop, thinking for sure that these people will be happy because he let develop a very high technology center in Belarus, but he didn't understand that he was creating a bourgeoisie, and the bourgeoisie wants power. And that's why the base of opposition is this high-tech private enterprise against the state-owned workers who are rather behind the government. And that's why the property issue is basic in Belarus. And that's the point, that's the problem. Because of course, Western countries are for market and privatization, as Elena said, and as everybody knows. But the problem is coming from Russia. Because when we think Russia, we think Putin. But there is not only Putin. There are oligarchs in Russia. And when I talked with my colleagues in Minsk, they told me, you know, Mazepin, for example, the leader of Uralchem, which is a Belarusian living in Russia and which is a Russian oligarch, even if he's Belarusian by root, he sent a lot of money for the opposition in Belarus. And also he corrupted quite a lot of people from the interior ministry in Belarus because he wanted to conquer, which is very important, the Solidarsk mining agro-industrial center, since he is a chemist industry in Russia, and he wants to take the Solidarsk, which is a world leading enterprise, I put you this information, it's a world leading enterprise in the agro-industrial sector. And it's very important. And of course now situation has probably changed, and Russia knows, Russia, Putin, Kremlin knows that Belarus cannot go west because but Belarus is strategical because in Belarus you have the big radar for the Russian fleet all over the world. And it's of course out of question that Belarus can go to NATO. It's out of question. It's a question of life for Russia because Belarus border is 500 kilometers from Moscow. You have to think about that. You know how nervous are Americans about the little Cuba near Florida, but Cuba is not 500 kilometers from Washington. And Belarus is 500 kilometers from Moscow. So it's very important to take that into account. And of course, for Putin, it is basically important. I think Putin did understand now that the question of reforms in Belarus cannot be pushed if there will be privatization, because the mass of Belarusian people don't want privatization. They know what happened in Ukraine. They know what happened in Poland. And that's very important. The opposition hide its social and economic program for the masses. It had to be shown at the state TV. What is the program, the social program of the opposition, which is privatization? And when it happened, then a lot of people decided that this program is not their program. So the situation is changing. And now, hopefully, I don't know what will happen, but you have the discussion about constitutional reforms, and you have you have some people of opposition that have been addressed by President Lukashenko. I remember that Lukashenko went into jail to talk with opposition people 3 hours. to have negotiation with them. Of course, jail is not maybe the best place to hold a negotiation, but still it's important to notify that. It means that the question of a reform of institution is important, but at the condition that the Belarusian economy and that Belarusian state will still be independent. Today, I just learned that Lukashenko proposed an anti-colored revolution alliance of states of the world, all states that can put together their energy to have an anti-color revolution alliance, which is quite important, I think. And I will finish with that. As Gracjan told, Poland has a very big role in the Polish state, of course, in the color revolution in Minsk. But what is important now is to know that we have something like a revolution in Warsaw. And for Lukashenko, it's a very good chance, because he can tell that now Polish government is in a mess. He wanted a revolution in its neighbor, and now he has in its own country. So Poland is not so strong as it was as a state under NATO alliance, and maybe the situation, the global situation is shifting, and next month will be very interesting to know which countries in Eastern Europe or in other parts of the world are really stable and which ones are not stable. You know, maybe Belarus is not is going now to be more quiet than it was, since we see that the number of manifestation is diminishing, and that the real issues like property issues are coming up, and that a constitutional discussion has also been engaged. So let's be optimistic. I don't know, of course, what will happen, but let's be optimistic. I think that there is a possibility that Belarus will find a way for constitutional but rational reform, which means the way toward economical reform, which will not be the chaos and the market economy Elena told us about. So that's the main points I wanted to.
Thank you, Bruno. There are many interesting points, of course, you said. Well, I underline again of the identity of people of Belarus, which is kind and naive. That you you underline. Maybe Margarita working on this kind of identity, nationalism at the beginning. Maybe later she can react about it. And well, you have already answered what I asked as question at the beginning. What happened and the people in Belarus who are for Lukashenko, because what we see in the West on the mainstream media is the opposition, but we never see what they do, the people who are for Lukashenko. And you have, it seems you have reliable resources, which is not mainstream. This is very, very important. And what is also interesting to notice that there are similarities of cases. I mean, the destabilization of nation states in different countries, different parts of the world. Well, Belarus, Venezuela, of course, and Syria, Libya, and so
United States also.
Similar pattern, and you said
Kyrgyzstan.
Yes, of course.
Kyrgyzstan. Don't forget these countries.
Yeah, of course, and also Latin America, like Colombia and well, Cuba, of course, etc., etc. No, so and you ask the question, who are behind this? And my question is always this: does this what this process is spontaneous or design. Is it a part of a grand design, what is called hegemony, or it is spontaneous? This is the question. Maybe Dimitris will speak about chaos, the chaos strategy. So Dimitris, this is now your turn.
Thank you, Darwis. Thank you all for being present here. I think that in your question, the answer is it is both. You cannot just design social processes, but you can wait for the inner contradictions of your for the right moment to exploit the inner contradictions of your river. There is no doubt that the dissolution of the Soviet space and even of Russian Federation, it's a nearly proclaimed goal of the West, of Western imperialism. So I don't think there is any doubt about it. The question is what is permitting its advances. For instance, Elena said before accused nomenclatura, Soviet nomenclatura, and she was right. But I want to remind her that there was a massive, astonishing support of Soviet and especially Russian intellectuals to this process. And of course, they changed their mind, many of them some years after, because they were the people who paid more dearly the shock therapy applied in the Soviet Union. But it has not happened just out of a small bunch of people. Now, about the Belarusian situation, I don't know very concretely what is happening there, and so I would avoid to speak about it, but I have more questions than answers. For instance, why all this happened now? Because also in 1993, when it was Lukashenko has risen to power, it was a time that Western, so to say, model was extremely popular in the Soviet Union. At that time, Belarusian people has supported enthusiastically Lukashenko. Now we see that the country is split. I don't know in what percentage, and the percentage is one thing. Another thing is the dynamism. Following the Soviet evolutions and having been myself a correspondent during Perestroika and Yeltsin years in Moscow, I noticed also one feature, that in the Soviet space in general, we don't have the kind of political life and political personalities and political and activism that we know in the West and in the South. I mean, it seems my interpretation is that Stalinism has been a terrible experience because it has somehow abolished political life. Political life went underground, and you have a lot of, I don't know Lukashenko exactly, because Lukashenko had somehow a political flavor, at least in the 90s. But most of or even of the Soviet leaders I have met were not politicians, were administrators. And when the conditions, and when they were created conditions of open political antagonism, simply they could not defend their policy. They could not provide an alternative to what was coming. By the way, I heard with much interest the presentation by Elena about the discussions on planning in the Soviet Union. Especially the period of 20s is badly known in the West, and it is very, very interesting, and maybe it is useful. But there is an element about which I heard nothing from any. I mean, what is the participation of people to this process? Because this process cannot be understood only as an abstract economical or technical mechanism. it is also a political and cultural process. If the people are alienated from all this sphere and they are just the objects of the planning, then something will go definitely wrong. We had various experiences like the Yugoslav one. I don't say that it was a successful experience. Its results were mitigated, but we have examples where communist regimes or socialist regimes tried to make people participate at some level. And even I think in China, if they don't participate in the central political life, they are trying, the Chinese Communist Party, to make them participate at least on a local level. So we have to see also what kind of planning we're speaking about, which methods, what degree of participation of people, and so on and so forth. Because a state economy is not still a socialist economy. For me, socialism is the self-management of society at all levels, generalized. And this is a goal, it has not been realized in any country up to now. Now, we have, I don't think that the simultaneous crisis we have in Belarus, in Moldova now, where we will see probably a change of government, in Ukraine, in Nagorno-Karabakh and in Kyrgyzstan are just an accident. Some of my friends in Moscow tell me that are very satisfied by the way Russia has handled the Karabakh question, and probably in the short run they are right, but in the long run, personally I keep some doubts. My impression is the following one: you don't have Vladimir Putin has stopped the process of decomposition of the Russian Federation. He has stopped also, he has defended Russian interests abroad. But the general picture is not very good, because Russia has lost Ukraine in a way which is very difficult to recuperate. Of course, Crimea should be a part of Russia, and now Russians can say, okay, we have Crimea, but Ukraine was always a part of the state or of the big of this big space, and now it's a country which has a hostility with Russia. In southern Caucasus, they have an agreement with Turkey, which seems satisfying for them, for Moscow, I mean, but I doubt that the fact that Turkey has acquired a presence in South Caucasus, in Transcaucasia, is a great success for Russia, after all. So we see a big difficulty in integrating the ex-Soviet space. And I think there is a question here. The Soviet Union, whatever the critiques we may make to it, and of course it was not a perfect regime, otherwise it would not collapse. After all, it had three things. It has a socialist vision, real, fake, but it had some vision. The second thing, it has tried to respect, at least formally, the rights of the nations, which is a very sensible question for all the ex-Russian Empire and the Soviet Union. I don't say that it handled this question in a perfect way, but if you want to reintegrate the ex-Soviet space, you must be very sensitive to those questions. You have to have also a vision. And after all, I want to remind that the Soviet Union had a system of transfers, of economic transfers, of financial transfers to the weakest somehow republics and places and so on and so forth, which is not very relevant, very which is in contradiction with the economic system of Russia today and with the ideology of Russia today, because the Putin has reversed a part of the geopolitical, so to say, destruction of Russia, which began in 1989, 1991, but it has not reversed somehow the social and economic results. And he did not even put it as this as a goal. It is still a compromise between the running economic oligarchy and the necessities of the Russian nation, so to say. Corruption is rampant everywhere, and it is also, I don't know what's happening in Belarus, but anyway, it is a central focus point of all the color revolutions. And now, if Lukashenko wants to make an international to confront color revolutions, it would be good to make an international to confront the reasons which provoke the color revolutions. It may be more stable as a solution. And this is what is making, those factors which are making non-attractive Russia to many republics, or at least to big segments of the population. And this is why we see this tragic situation where those countries are, a part of their population is pushed to make color revolutions, which color revolutions lead to a final defeat of them by Russia. Like in Crimea, like in Armenia, and so on and so forth. But of course, somebody will say that those color revolutions were unsuccessful in the goals, but they were successful in destroying, or at least harming very much, the relations between Russia and the republics themselves. So they made weaker both the Soviet space and the ties between the ex-Soviet republics. So I think this question cannot be answered independently. It puts forward the main question, and the main question is what direction Russia will take, because it has somehow stopped between Europe and Asia, between the ancient Soviet heritage and a new kind of post-communist capitalism. It has been able to resist, and it was a miracle what Putin has done. But in the same time, his success has stopped, has been a factor which has stopped a more radical solution of the Russian problems somehow. And we have also the lack 30 years after the decomposition of the Soviet Union. It is a pity to see that there is not really a vision encompassing society, economy, relations between nations, which is a very important question. And for the time being, what we have seen is essentially a reaction to Western imperialism. And this reaction was very positive, because otherwise everything would be destroyed in the ex-Soviet space. But we have a problem of alternative, which we don't have only in the ex-Soviet Union, we have it everywhere in the world, I'm afraid. Now, I wanted also to speak, that we discuss the question of the very acute political struggle in the United States, because this is of world importance, but I'm not sure that we can do it now as we framed the discussion. So it's up to you. If you want, I can tell you my ideas about what is happening in America and what is its importance for the world, but I'm afraid of diluting a little bit the discussion by invoking too many subjects. It's up to you.
No, that will be the next. Will be the next. The next.
Yes,
Because,
but the problem with our
it will
Zoom
be
conferences,
fascinating, exciting subject for the next global geopolitical insight.
Darwis, excuse me. I'm a journalist. You are a professor in university.
Yeah.
Now things are going much quicker than our Zoom conferences. You see, we have a problem here.
Oh, really?
You see, when you are in a history in the making, you cannot just follow the plan. You
Yeah,
must
of course.
overthrow it.
Stories
If you
accelerate.
want, I can propose to you the following thing.
Yeah.
I say I speak for 5 or 6 minutes, and
Yeah.
then I let you to comment or not to comment, to make questions or not to make questions.
Okay.
Do you agree? Okay.
Yeah.
So
Just say maybe it is a kind of appetite for the next session. But we have to answer many questions on this question of the crisis of Belarus, Russia, Europe, and
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But
And
what I want to say about America, which will be quite surprising, I suppose, for many of you, because I have not seen many people agreeing with what is my opinion, is that we see a split of fundamental importance inside Western capitalism and imperialism. So it is important to understand what are the properties of those two camps. The one personified by, let us say, by Trump, the other personified by Biden. My Russian friends usually, when they speak about the West and its negative, so to say, aspects, they use the term globalization. Probably they have kept Lenin in his tomb, but they have buried completely his book on imperialism. They don't like it. It's very ambivalent there. Usually, by the way, everybody who is building mausoleums wants to bury the heritage of the people who are there. Imperialism is a fundamental characteristic of capitalism, and this we know it for 2 centuries now. And it is not an accident. It is not a psychological trait of one leader of another. So you can ask America to stop or Israel to stop intervening and let the other countries develop calmly, etc. But you will never attain your goal because they need to. But there is a great difference about the means which they can use for their domination. And here we have more and more to separate, a split inside the West about what are the convenient means. In 1990-91, when globalization was established, Western financial capital believed that the force of the Western paradigm, its ideology and its financial means would be enough to unify all the planet under their own hegemony. But in the same time, there were those people who believe that this is impossible. And so they will have to provoke a clash of civilizations. So to say, if I speak schematically, the one camp is Fukuyama or Soros or Merkel or Obama. The other is Netanyahu, Thiel, Pompeo, Huntington, Trump, etc. Now there are many people who say that Trump is a friend of Russia. This is a rather crazy idea, because if he was a friend of Russia, he would not become president of the United States. he would have been stopped much time. You cannot become. Only if there is a kind of socialist revolution or something like that, you can have a president of United States who is, how to say, friend of Russia. By the way, I wanted to remind you that Adolf Hitler, for many years, was pretending to be a friend of Russia, and even Russians believed that. This is you can find the proof in what Marshal Zhukov describes in his memoirs, how the shock that Joseph Stalin had suffered when he phoned him to inform him that the Germans were attacking the Soviet Union. And then Thatcher and Gorbachev were saying that, Thatcher and Reagan were saying that they were big friends of Russia, you remember? But you remember also what happened after those friendships. So I don't believe so much to this kind of Russian, how to say, friendship. And I think the real intentions of politicians are not reflected in what he says or the impressions he wants to create. They are reflected in what he is doing while in office. And during the last 4 years, Trump has created, has twice bombed Syria in spite of the presence there of the Russian troops. Thus, he has tested the Russian defenses, the Russian reflexes. He has threatened with annihilation North Korea. That means that he tested also the Chinese reactions. He has destroyed the basic structure of nuclear arms control. And what is also very important, he has left the Iran nuclear deal, thus creating the basis for a new big war in the Middle East, probably with tactical nuclear arms. By the way, the best way to analyze what a country is prepared to, or a leadership is prepared to do, is to look to what it does with armaments. And there you see a very big increase of nuclear stockpiles, of conventional arms, and of sophistication of arms. So I think it is crazy to believe that this guy is preparing for peace with Russia by doing all that. In reality, he's preparing for something. I don't say that Biden is not imperialist. Here, for me, the choice in America was between a bad and a very bad option. But the very bad option is what? For me, the real program of Trump is World War III. And this is an irrational, a crazy program. And in order to be realized, it has to create the political, so to say, basis, the ideology he needs to proceed to such an escalation. And this is what he's trying to do. By the way, at his time, the function of National Socialism was the same. Hitler was not elected was not supported by the Germans because Germans knew what he would do. He was a kind of revolutionary. He has presented himself as some kind of revolutionary against the globalization of that time, the Anglo-Saxon globalization, against the Versailles Treaty, against, he named himself National Socialist. So I don't say that we have the same phenomenon because the phenomena cannot reappear in the same way, but we have the same historical function. He's trying to create the political ideology, the ideas, the basis which are needed for a generalized war against Russia, against China, against Islam, against nature, against humanity itself. This is the real program of Donald Trump, and this is my opinion, that we are facing such a problem here. I believe that anyway we are living, as Noam Chomsky put it, in the most critical period of all human history. Capitalism has two things why, and this is why this temptation is to go to such solutions is great. One thing, in 1991, they got the impression that they are the rulers of the world. And you believe you are on the top. You don't accept easily to a secondary position. Then, in the second, they face problems which they cannot solve. The economic crisis, the ecological crisis, and the China crisis, the rise of China, is obliging them, if they want to keep their domination on the world, to move aggressively, like Germany did in 1941, like they did in 1914. And I think I take much of the time. Of course, this maybe not go through the orthodox ways because of the existence of the nuclear arms, but I was reading the other day an interview by the acting chief of the general staff of the British Army. Great Britain is not an empire now, but it has the imperial know-how. Huh? So I give some attention to what British generals are saying. And he was saying that there is a high probability of World War III. This was a very strange, somehow, declaration. So I believe we must develop new tools, political, analytical tools to face such a situation. I would speak about it, but I out of respect for the participants and for Darwis and for the time, I decided to stop, which is very difficult for a Greek, which I am. But
Thank you, Dimitris. This will be for the next session because we have go beyond 2 hours. Fortunately, I don't have limit of the Zoom. Now we have already 2 hours and 16 minutes. No problem. If you want to continue, we will continue. Okay. So, well, I will open. Well, I will not give comment to. Well, just one point of the what I think important from Dimitris is that I have impression that the Soviet Union is an experimentation which is not finished yet. I mean, you said that Soviet Union is planified or planned from top, but the people's participation is not really engaged. So this is a kind of top down. So it is not yet.
No,
well,
it began. No, Darwis.
No.
It began from the down.
Yes.
But then the top, through very violent and dramatic evolution, has somehow dominated overall expressions of society and politics.
Okay. Okay.
But it
Anyway,
was from below that it began.
Thank you very much. Now, well, Elena, you will have time. Now,
can I answer? Yes.
Sorry?
Very short answer. Yes. At first, our planning by successive approximation methods was the most democratic methods in the world, because all other plannings, they are as at the top, we will decide how to divide investments between different lobby positions. But in our country, what this process of planning was the most democratic, because we used back connection from all enterprises. It is first. But we had mistakes, for example, different mistakes. For example, our nomenclatura decided to switch off information about prices of equilibrium on the market. And so we lost our orienters for what people want. So next planning mechanism, which will be introduced, and I hope in Belarus, of course, will have a back connection from consumer market, because if we have such back information, we can change our final product according to people's needs and to maximize utility for people. So it needs, our planning mechanism needs to be something different as we had before. And next, it is very interesting. Now I want to say that in Russia, we have very interesting clubs of very clever people who can do something as mutual conclusions about what capitalism can do about democracy. It is like no any democracy in decisions of capitalism, only how to organize wars, how to take money from poor people. It is democracy of capitalism, and only speaking about freedom, democracy, social guarantees, and but mechanisms are working against people. The most anti-democratic system is capitalism. And Russia tried to create socialism, but we had mistakes, and it is very interesting to study in what period we decided to remove democracy, about Dmitry speaking, from decisions, and nomenclature began to do decisions by herself.
Okay.
It is and our club of very historical, social.
Yes.
Now they are working and they want to understand our real reasons why we came from democracy and had done such nomenclature. So my opinion, Dimitros and other people, that only cybernetic planning plus real democracy for people together will create new system which can give what this exit from global crisis. It will be another picture, will be catastrophe for mankind. And Belarus now has very interesting position that they can realize, a new constitution will realize. I hope so. We are doing everything what we can to introduce this new model in Belarus. And people will have something as locomotive which will take everybody to go to progressive civilization. That's all.
Thank you. Now I will open to public. Yeah, I saw Beatrice want to say. So Beatrice is from Brazil. She is from Uruguay, but based also in Brazil, double nationality, and professor of history and political science at Rio Federal University of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Okay, Beatrice.
Thank you, Darwis. It's a great pleasure for me to join you virtually, at least, to meet you again, and all dear comrades and friends from all over the world. So I will be very brief because it's really late. I will
not so late in Rio de Janeiro. It's what time? It is 12 or
it's
1 o'clock.
2 o'clock and 25 minutes, and I haven't had a lunch yet.
And you know, in Japan, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and our comrade Isabel, she left, but Devon, I think Devon is still there. Okay, I'll continue. Yeah.
So just like titles of some of subjects we can address, but no time to develop the ideas. First of all, I agree completely to understand this situation in Belarus as part of a more wide geopolitical dispute between the Western imperialist forces and this very powerful strategy or agreement or coalition in Asia, mainly with these two key actors, Russia and China. Not by some crazy ideas, the last national security strategy document, which was released in January 2020, partially released openly, not all the document, defined China and Russia as the enemies of the United States and not having any more the terrorism or any other kind of adversaries. At the top is China and Russia. So that's very important as to understand the context in which we are analyzing the situation in Belarus, not only in Belarus. The other thing I would like to stress is that we have been spoken in 2 hours about these colored revolutions. We should add a very key also category, which is hybrid war. Hybrid war is, we are studying this very carefully in Latin America because it is the strategy to capture minds and hearts of people through different mechanisms, trying to get division inside society, radicalized segments. In Brazil, we are facing this problem. It's a big challenge. Brazil is now a new country after 2 years of Bolsonaro's government, and hybrid war has been researching among the Pentagon and the deep state in the United States since the 60s and the 70s. It's not new, but they are applying now it with new tools. The mass media is part of it. Therefore, we can't have a correct idea or interpretation through mass media of what is happening in Belarus or any part of the world, because they are part of this complex mechanism or authoritarian imperialist mechanism. And the new medias, the social medias too. And this hybrid war is aiming not to anymore have any limit between peace and war, between what is reality and what is imagined reality, what is a news or what is fake news. So if we are dealing, as the case in Brazil, with most of the people having a very deep political concern or even deep educational support, it's very easy to create a great confusion in their minds, not to allow them to have a clear interpretation of the reality. And therefore we are seeing these very radical movements taking the stage. So I would just say that I agree. I congratulate all the colleagues because it was a very rich discussion. I have learned a lot with you, so thank you very much. I think that's very important to maintain this dialogue because as I agree with Dimitri, which the velocity of the transformations, I perhaps don't agree very much. He said Biden is the less bad guy. Yeah, but in Latin America, we have a very, very terrible experience with democratic, let's call democratic party government. No problem with them to invade, to create chaos, to regime change. So let's be very careful about what will Biden government and administration represent for the world and for us in Latin America particularly. So I think that one of the key points that has been mentioned is the people's participation. I have only one example of success of people participation to avoid the success of imperialist intervention. It is Cuba. But I don't know any other example of this. Yeah, and it is really one of the main challenge, I think, for progressive forces to keep in mind that it's very important to have this permanent dialogue with grassroots movements, with the people, to try to support the idea of having a clear interpretation of this very chaotic and complex moment we are living. So thank you very much. It was an extraordinary discussion.
Thank you, Beatrice. Thank you very much. So who is willing to speak? Question? Yes, Isaac. Isaac is professor in Montreal in Quebec University. Usually French speaking. So try to speak English now. Isaac, your turn.
Thank you very much. I will try it. And I'm fluent in German, but I think it's better I try it in English than German. So,
yeah. Isaac has made a doctorate in German. So you speak German, French, and English, of course, and your own mother tongue, maybe, I don't know.
More and Lele, two African languages.
Faso. Yeah, Isaac is originally from Burkina Faso, now is based in Montreal. Yes.
So thank you very much. I'm very grateful for the insights. They are very, very important because I'm not familiar with the context, the geopolitical context in Belarus, and so it was very important for me to hear and your insights, and it's like Beatrice said, it's very useful, and so thank you very much. So I just want to ask some questions because it will help me to better understand what is going on. I hear you were speaking about naive people, and the way you phrased it is very interesting to me because Fabricant said also was speaking about the idealistic way the people are thinking about in Belarus while they are protesting, and it is also about the way they see the past and with this nationalistic idea and the lack of a geopolitical view, global view. So I think I see it from a cultural perspective and the way people feel, and this need for a kind of new genesis. And Dimitris, you told about it. He said there is when people, it's about alienation of people and the historical perspective and the cultural perspective, how we deal with the third of the population who protest, for instance. When we, and the question is very important, Elena said, how do we identify what people want? How do we read at a national, at a regional level, and at a global level? How do we read and identify what people want, and how do we consider these voices? I'm asking because if we read it, we can see it as a battle of knives are struggling. And then I read it from the perspective of African people, for instance, when big global actors are dealing on a ground in Africa, for instance, we say when knives are struggling, chicken have to be careful, because this is very, very dangerous for them. So we have the big players, but now how do we consider the voices, and how can we find a kind of alternative view by listening or paying attention to what people need and identify their needs? I think this is a very important question to be considered, because we have the global discourses, we have the global the official and dominant players, but I think the challenge would be to hear something else in order to design a new order. And this will not come from, I don't think so, that it will come from the dominant, the mainstream. You see, I try to put it so. So thank you for the insights. I learned much things today, and I will continue to reflect it.
Thank you, Isaac. Well, Isaac also came from Burkina Faso, you know, the once revolutionary country with Thomas Sankara, who was finally also murdered because of his revolutionary actions. So it's people-oriented. I mean, you said that the alternatives must come from the people, or from not from the top, or not from the elites, etc., etc. Okay.
Darwish, may I add just
yes.
one? You know, we and I think Beatrice said it. We are in a globalized hybrid world, and the challenge is to deal with many influences and find a way to deal with a very complex way of representation, thinking, and it's very difficult to cut it in categories and very fixed categories, because the problem of borders, and I don't just mean geopolitical borders, but also in terms of discourse and the way discourses are circulating and representations. This is a big challenge, because they influence populations, people, regions, and we have to deal with them and find a way to design this new order. I think it's very important. So I wanted to add it.
Yeah. Thank you. This is a part of our work, our working group for preparing our conference in France and in Indonesia. Okay. So, and yes, Elena Bonis, now the second Elena, she was once my student. Now she is a colleague of mine.
Very much.
Yes.
So I have one question. So thank you very much for all. It was very, very interesting, very informative, I would say. From my point of view, I would like to know, what is your opinion, how European Union will build their policy vis-a-vis Russia and their neighbors? Because today we see that there are some national tendencies and streams inside the countries. Obviously, Poland acted as well on behalf of US, on behalf of the British government as well, in order to reheat the situation in Belarus. So my question is to you as a specialist. What do you think, how European Union is going to build their foreign policy regarding Russia, knowing that Germany is suffering from extraterritorial sanctions from USA, Nord Stream 2. Beatrice was telling about the hybrid war, and I'm totally agree. Now peoples are manipulated absolutely, and there is no limit of fight. The fight is, the battle is everywhere, and basically we are creating somehow needs for those people, and we are hitting those mass
So what do you think about European Union? What is the future? And what will be their policy today vis-a-vis Russia? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone want to answer? Shall we collect question or answer directly?
I can answer. I can answer if you don't mind.
Well, now, what do you? Is there any other question in the same sense?
Yeah. No.
Well, I have the same question as you, Elena. Well, Elena was also from Russia,
Okay.
but now she is based in Le Havre. So, if there is no other question, okay, Elena. First, Elena from Moscow.
My opinion is that the European Union now is creating on finance stabilization criteria. It is the same analogy with the end of 20th years. And then we remember that in 30th years, fascism came to the power in Europe, almost in the whole Europe. My prediction is it will be something as digital fascism because Europe has no any other alternative to keep some order. They can't do the order in economy. They began to speak about this thanks to Macron, who created at first new planning coordination organ. He was first who created. Of course, his organ, planning organ, is from 70s years of previous century, will not receive very serious problems of coordination. And so my opinion that this finance stabilization in Europe will be finished by digital fascism. And this situation is very dangerous for all countries of the world. I hope that maybe thanks to this situation with Belarus, a situation with Karabakh, everything which now surrounded Russia, Russia will receive some instinct to be an alternative strategy. And if we will not do this, it means that digital fascism will be in the whole world and future is very, very bad. It is my predict.
Okay, thank you very much. But my question was, what will be European Union policy vis-a-vis Russia?
Russia,
European.
I am sure it will be not nice because
it will be not nice, of course. Well, maybe
it's anyway.
Let me say a few words.
Too much resources. All our resources.
No, maybe I will ask those who belong to European Union, maybe Bruno, Gracjan, and also Dimitris. Greece is a part of European Union. Yes, Bruno.
You seem to be surprised.
Yes, concerning European Union, I think that the possibility of digital fascism is a real possibility, but I'm not sure that it will be a European Union digital fascism and not a national fascism in different countries, because I'm not sure that European Union will still exist in the near future. Not only because of Brexit, but because tensions are so hard between different countries and inside each country now that a collapse of European Union, as we had the collapse of Soviet Union 30 years ago, I think it's a possibility now, which is becoming real. I don't want to say if it's positive or negative and so on, but it's a possibility. And I think that the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, showed that there is nothing like a European identity, because each country reacted in its own way. And the best example is Italy, which had help from Cuba, China, and Russia, but no help for any member of European Union. And so for me, there is no such thing like European identity, and it's finishing. Now there is Southern Europe. It was a Southern European country, Northern European country, and Central Eastern European countries. And inside the EU, you have three different regions. And inside this region, you have different countries. But the contradiction in European Union are so tough that I don't know if European Union will survive, and in which form, as a confederacy eventually, but for sure not as a federation as it was planned earlier. So the digital fascism is a real possibility, but it can be a national digital fascism in powerful European countries like Germany, like France, mostly, which can have a more, let's say, powerful policy, or Great Britain. United Kingdom is not in European Union, but what we can observe, the situation in Britain now, it's looking more and more in the direction of digital fascism, even more than other European countries. So you can be out of European Union and have digital fascism going on. Of course, that's a possibility. I'm not a prophet. I don't say it's a possibility, but we have to think that European Union is not the end of history as it could have been observed 20 years ago, when we were thinking European Union is there for centuries.
Thank you, Bruno. And you are not the first. You are not the first who said that Europe will be finished. I mean, I can quote, for example, Emmanuel Todt, was a highly respected intellectual and scientific, that he said that Europe doesn't work, European Union doesn't work. And also, of course, the Greece, Yanis Varoufakis, of course, also. So there are many respected intellectual who said that European Union doesn't work or will disappear. So, well, other question?
I want to add something about this.
Yes, Gracjan, yes. You are from Europe, yes, Union European. Okay.
From my perspective, from my point of view, the possible scenario of developing relations between Russia and European Union is it's worth to start about the future position of Germany. Two facts is worth to mention. In last Valdais Club, very important meeting in Russia, Vladimir Putin openly said that we observe. He said that we observe the crisis of the United States, and they are developing new centers of power, China and Germany. But from other side, just before the election in the United States, German proposed a new kind of reset between Germany and United States. I think it was based on the anticipation that Joe Biden would win in the elections, and when this tendency would win, and it is probable because, of course, Angela Merkel agreed that Biden was winner, it could be reconstruction of transatlantic identity,
yes, exactly.
Built on Berlin-Washington new consensus. Maybe they are back to the proposition of building free trade area between European Union and the United States, and it would be strategy to build the geoeconomical bloc which could fight against the China-Russia new bloc. And it is worth to add when it comes to Belarusian election that not only Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin find the Lukashenko win as a right, but also the Turkey president. So it is another state which want to fight their own path in these growing contradictions. And I think the situation in Poland, when we see the opposition, but which is of course from the perspective of geopolitical called false opposition, they have the same identity, but more related to the democratic and liberal interventionism. it may be also the aspect of this reconstruction. Thank you.
Thank you. I have the
Can-
same. Well, let me say just one word. I have the same. How do you say? Feeling that the victory of Biden will strengthen the transatlantic, which means that because Trump has broken the alliance of what I call Western Galaxy,
Yeah.
but with the entering of Biden, it will strengthen again the Western Galaxy. That's what I feel. But we will discuss in the next session with Dimitris on this issue.
But I want to say there is
of the
something.
victory of Biden. Now, Dimitris, as a European citizen.
Yes, I'm a citizen of the world, not only of Europe. But anyway, my answer to Elena about the concrete question she puts is that European Union has not a policy. It will follow, for the time being, the American policy as it has done in all essential subjects. To give you an example, well, I met once Sergei Glaziev, who is an advisor to Putin. He told me that he visited Germany. All the official persons and important persons he met in Germany have assured him that Berlin will never impose sanctions on Moscow because they're not so stupid as Americans. This happened some days before Germany decides to impose sanctions. So for the time being, there is no, there is certainty of that. But I don't think that Germany will succumb to American pressure and will cancel the Nord Stream 2. This is a serious point of, okay, we are here and we will see, but it will be very difficult for them to do it. But as for the medium term and long term, listen, nobody can speak seriously about this. The European Union most probably will be under serious pressure, and maybe it will be destroyed because of the coming economic crisis. That depends on its depth and importance and how it will live. If we have a victory of Trumpism, we will go towards a decomposition of Europe in a chaotic way, the same way the Soviet Union was decomposed, in a negative, I mean, way. But you can save Europe, the French, I mean, because you made your small revolution with the Gilets jaunes. If this revolution acquires a positive program for other Europeans, we will follow you and we will found a new Europe. But this seems very utopian now. I don't know. Otherwise, we will go
somehow compromised, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, it's somehow compromised, if I'm not mistaken. For the moment, the Gilets jaunes, they are keeping quiet, and money are running from Brussels like a raining money. No, for the moment, those movements, Gilets jaunes, in fact, the background as well is somehow nationalist as well. So we need to be very cautious about those movements. They are for social equality, for sure, based on an economic situation, but at the same time, people want to be identified as the French. They have a national background, and some of them are not from the left side. They are mostly from the right side, because the left side here, they were not very performant in order to touch this segment of low payment people, workers, etc. And extreme right side, like Marine Le Pen, etc., and her party, they were extremely very efficient by getting those people on board. So that's why when I've asked to you about your vision of European Union and all those movements, national movements in actual society. The trait as well is that you were talking about, Elena, we were talking about fascism. Okay, I wouldn't say that is fascism, let's say it's extremism, that I'm feeling that we are under pressure of those extremists based on social conditions, and somehow the future could be compromised by this.
But anyway, the successes in world history, left has succeeded when it was able to express the national feeling of a given society and give it an international perspective also. This has happened with the French Revolution. This has happened with the Russian and the Chinese one. So it's maybe that depends on the capacity of the left to be able to combine the expression of what is reasonable national feeling, defense of a people, with anyway in France we have both kinds of nationalism. We have chauvinistic, imperialist, colonialist nationalism, and we have revolutionary nationalism. Democratic.
And we have also a sovereignist, like de Gaulle. De Gaulle is very sovereignist and nationalist as well.
And
well,
Emmanuel Todt.
Yes,
Emmanuel Todt, he's saying we need to keep our sovereign country.
Yes, of course.
The borders and Europe is over, etc.
Yeah.
So.
But he was not socialist. He was more right, de Gaulle.
Yeah,
Gaulle,
of course.
typical right.
But he is not for NATO. He said that, and he tried to bring France not under the domination of USA. And
I don't know if he I'm not sure he was all right.
No, his name
I
was
think
no, he is not right. I mean, he doesn't. He said that he doesn't belong to right or left.
But
and
he
he followed also Jean Jaurès lectures when he was
and what I found interesting, I just saw the documentary film of de Gaulle some days ago. He said, we are non-alignment. So it is interesting, you see. De Gaulle is not...
only words, but activities was how to dollars to do free from gold. If very serious to read this period, de Gaulle played with USA in the same game. The dollar should be free from gold.
Okay.
That's all.
Any other question or remarks?
Yes. I think that it is worth to add one important moment because of connection between the Belarusian crisis situation, especially between supporters of opposition and universal lessons from this. Professor Elena clearly said that we observe not only in Belarus but in other countries the situation when the politicians have a problem with rightly rule the changing societies because of lack tools to control the economy. And the real problems and contradictions, of course, lies in this aspect. And look at Belarus. Yes, we talked about these IT young people who was the main opposition for Belarusian president, which exactly has created this class of people. But why they start to struggle against his father? Yes, because of cultural processes. When we observe these people, we in Poland have the name for this kind of people as a hipster revolution. It involves people who are Americanized, cosmopolitan, working, and therefore not really interested in politics. And I think that this generation, which are not also not only in Belarus it is functioning, but all over the world, is also the result of civilizational change, such as fast movies, fast cars, speeding commercials, dynamics of sports, pursuit of money, hence the stipulation and inability to concentrate based on logic, true and rational discussion. Exactly. And these are trends of postmodern society. And you know, and that's why in Belarus they fight against the politicians who gave them conditions to work and to be more rich. It is quite different to understand, but it is dependent of about civilization processes. And I think I'm interested in your opinion that we need to think about the creation of new kind of utopia, which are, you know, it needs a reconstruction of the culture, new horizons, which, you know, gave that whole people, especially young, new perspective. That and without these processes of building new utopia, you know, there always be like that. That these people don't know exactly what they are fighting for. Yes, because you know about one moment the direction, one moment emotion, and so on and so on. But at the end of the day, it could finish as a, you know, destroyed country, as we can observe in different areas. So I think that lessons from Belarus is two. As Elena said, the thinking about new kind of planning, and the second, new cultural perspective, new kinds of
democracy, real. Yes, yeah, absolutely. Can I add to this?
Yes, Elena.
Yes.
Gracjan, it's okay?
Yes, of course, thank you.
Yes, okay.
Okay, now Elena, yes.
I want to say that, Gracjan, absolutely, I agree with you. And maybe it will be very useful if, as a result of our session today, we will have some resolution.
Exactly.
Which will inside of this resolution.
Exactly, that's what I am thinking. Yes.
And we'll do science, and maybe it can help to keep Belarusian in socialist direction, but we will not find any other country which can change this vector of globalization as a whole. Russia in this situation will help to Belarus because understands that it is very important military position in Belarus. I'm sure that Russia will help. Russia is oligarchs, a very not nice country, capitalist, but will need to help Belarus to change vector of development, and then Belarus will be locomotive for Europe, for Russia, for all other countries. It is such place which we can use the, as I said, very kind, good people, which will understand very quickly that we want to change everything to the better life. And I want to say here, we see my student, Grigor Kiritsav, he is originally Armenian roots. But I want to say, yes, these guys, which I have in my politological groups, they represent new thinking of new students, which wants moral, to realize the best moral values. And we have a lot of such students, and we should give them chance to have contacts between themselves of all countries, to help to each other, to be active together, and to create not fascism, which is very threatening now, but to use pandemic as such barrier that then will be new life. And Bruno, I want that you had with him contact about his interesting article about your not good planet, which will go to fascism. Yes, it will be interesting to you, okay?
Okay, thank you. Well, as I said at the beginning, one of the objectives of our meeting is to have a common understanding and a common stand. I mean, a common attitude. What should we do? What should we put on paper? Our attitude as a common attitude. But it is not now. What I mean is we will collect our common stance on Belarus, on Lebanon, on Greece, Turkey, etc. It will be for the final declaration of our conference. That's our project.
Agree, absolutely.
Yeah.
Agree. And Elena, she is journalist and will help us to publish our resolution.
Yes, of course, Dimitris and Beatrice was once, but she left. Beatrice was once a journalist covering Middle East a long time. She interviewed many personalities, including Yitzhak Rabin, Yasser Arafat, Gaddafi, etc., etc. So this will be our project. So we have already more than 3 hours. I think the last proposal of Gracjan, it's very good. We need new utopia, cultural perspective, and cultural planning and cultural perspective. This is, I think, with these 3 proposals, we can end, we can close our meeting. What do you think?
Yes.
Just excuse me, just for, if you may, like, add something for.
Oh yes,
for
Mohammed from Cairo. Yes.
Yes, excuse me. Just I'm enjoying to listen for all and the presentation. It's really, really great to have different kind of ideas and views through this perspective from all of like participant over here and enjoying it. But from my point of view, just shortly, because this crisis of the Belarus is going to be more controversial, especially recently. We have a different kind of changes after the United States election and new president, and moreover we have different kind of perspective. We have it changes world system with a new more participant of power. So what I'm trying to really add over here, just we're going to know what's going on with resound globally and the military thinking about defense of what's going on in Belarus and the role of Russia and other power countries. Really, I've enjoyed everyone overviews, and thanks really for let you join that. Okay, I'm looking forward to hear more about next session and meeting. Sure, was all colleagues here.
Thank you, Muhammad. Next meeting will be the impact of Biden. Dimitris will be agrees to be the speaker, but I suppose other colleagues also will agree to speak. So, any comment?
I'd like to say that Russia is not so.
Yes, Polina.
Yes, Russia is not so optimistic about the future, about our links with Europe. We are very pessimistic about it.
Yeah.
Russia is really now very pessimistic. I hope it will change, but now really our Russian position is to stand by and wait.
Stand by. Okay.
Stand by. Stand by.
Okay.
We are not so optimistic.
Okay.
Very deep changes both in Russia inside. We can't see them. They are going. Very intellectual forces now are doing what to do.
Exactly.
It will give some result, very strong result.
Yes, exactly. We're waiting the moment.
And
when we will.
Yes, Elena.
If I may,
Another Elena. Yes.
Mistaken, Mr. Putin was the first, the president, the most pro-Western president, and his first step was to Western side, and he pushed at the beginning, and then he's faced some problems, promised for friendship, as you said, and always he was badly treated from Western side. So indeed, if I'm not mistaken, Russian position is wait and see, but they're not expecting some fruitful collaboration with Western countries.
No.
And logically not, logically not, logically not, logically,
Resolution. You put Russia this way.
logically not. Okay, so any other comment?
I have one comment.
Grigor, can you say
Who say, oh, this is from Russia.
Sorry, I'm late. Good evening. My name
Yes.
is Gracjan, and I think we have two ways. First way is a new globalization that use only cybernetic planning methods of economy. And second way is a house. We can see Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, we can see situation of Ukraine, and we can see that all world is in chaos. And I think that every political elite in the world, global elite, must use new methods of economic ruling and new methods of and must reform political system for more democratic. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, this is so you are a student of Elena, and that's
The new
very
generation. Yeah, the new generation. The new generation.
very strong
New idea. Very positive
okay, new generation. Okay,
The new generation.
okay.
Future. It's our future.
From former Soviet Republic. Okay, so any other comment?
Angelina, do you want to say something?
Angelina, okay.
Now everything is just clear, and I'll be waiting for the resolution of this meeting, of this conference. And also I'll be waiting for the reports of the participants. Just in thesis, I'll write to everyone, if you allow me, and ask the thesis of the reports. And so we'll prepare the big material in our news agency, just to show the people that the international think tank, I should call this conference in such a way, works and thinks about the main problems, the very important problems of Europe, Russia, Asia, and so on.
No, we do not pretend to be international think tank. this is what I call conversation among friends, comrades, and we don't pretend to make a change. This is to get understanding, to get insight, to know each other better, to understand, to have a common understanding, common perception, common perspective, and also a common stand, a common statement later. So yes, I hope you don't expect too much to us, because everybody of us are very busy persons, I suppose. So, but you will get this recording. I mean, I record it, and after that I can send you the recording if you need it. Okay, everybody who needs, I can send. But it will be very heavy, maybe 1 giga, because it's 3 hours in the form of video MP4. It will be around 1 giga, maybe gigabytes. Okay. So if there is no more remarks, so let's end our meeting. It is more than 3 hours, and it was exciting. Thank you very much. Have a nice day or evening.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And I will keep you informed on the next session dedicated to the impact of the victory of Biden in the world. With Dimitris agrees to be initial speaker, but I suppose other colleagues as well. Okay, thank you very much. So I saw Devon appearing from Hokkaido. It's now 3 o'clock in the morning, I suppose. 3 o'clock in the morning. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
to everybody.
So I saw Guillaume, my student, appearing, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye-bye.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
see you next time.
Господи.
So there is still somebody called
Yes,
Casper Split. Who is this? Casper Split. No? Who is Casper Split? I admit it, but he or she doesn't speak. He didn't speak.
Maybe.
Where Isaac?
Oui.
Tu veux qu'on parle?
Oui. Est-ce que
Alors,
peut-être
je vais terminer d'abord pour que l'enregistrement s'arrête.
Exact.
J'arrête l'enregistrement.